What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are here with another episode of Lions Latest, going through the latest Detroit Lions news. And today we are taking a look at the second participation report of the week for the Lions and for the Seahawks in this Week 4 matchup back in Ford Field. And currently, I believe the Lions are favored by 5.5 points. And I think we're 3-0 against the spread so far this season. So that sounds pretty good. As well as some great news with Jerry Jacobs. And take a look at a couple of notes that I have from Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn's pressers today. So let's get it started.
Fired up. It's made a great decision.
Great teammates, coaches, and other people who want to be Super Bowl champions. And we are. We're going to do it this year.
And we're going places because we want to go places.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here. We're back with another Lions Latest video. I was really focused on this day, this participation report day. Of course, tomorrow's super important, as well as the inactives, because that's going to tell us everything. But today, I was really focused on, not necessarily yesterday, because the Lions had a lot of guys on their report, and I did not participate, being that it was the first day of the week, and they're trying to keep their guys right. They're trying to keep their guys healthy, and it's a little bit of a lighter day they had on Wednesday. And then meanwhile, on the Seattle Seahawks side of things, they added multiple players to their injury report, or the participation report, today. So this is the important day that I wanted to take a look at. Yesterday was kind of just, no one basically practiced, I guess. As well as some of the notes that we have from the coordinators in this game. I think they hit on a lot of stuff that, specifically Aaron Glenn, what he talked about, what we talked about in some of our All-22 look. And I plan on doing the offensive side of the ball probably tomorrow. I think that's the goal, is to have it out at some point tomorrow. Could be later in the day like this one. I'm thinking that's kind of the plan, and then maybe Saturday we have a preview if possible, and if not, we'll just do it maybe before the game. But that's kind of how I'm aiming for the rest of this week to go heading into the Seattle Seahawks game, because I do want to talk a little bit and just show you guys some of the things that I've seen with this offense, because I've done the film watch for both sides, but I haven't done the offensive video yet. So we'll see if that happens, but I'm kind of aiming for tomorrow. Bringing back the comment of the day, so shout out to my man Jordy, who has the comment of the day today. So make sure, if you're a channel member, throw a comment on this video. If it's a question, if it's a statement, if it's an idea, whatever it is, throw it in the comment section, because I see yours first, so I'm more likely to pick those. However, this one is not, I don't believe this is a channel member. This is my man Jordy. Now, there were a lot of comments in the last video about basically Jeff Okudah shutting down Justin Jefferson, which I will say I probably made a mistake there, saying how Jeff Okudah shut down Justin Jefferson instead of just saying how the Lions defense shut down Justin Jefferson. But I think throughout the video, I definitely made it clear how the Lions did it, not necessarily how Jeff did it. Jeff played a good game, shout out to him. Yes, the Lions had help. It wasn't every play. No, I didn't see them put 3 defenders on him, like, at all. So I'm not going to explain myself, because I did in the video. You just got to watch the video, but I get it. It's YouTube. Some people don't watch the video. They just see the title and they react to it. But anyways, I've seen enough of those comments through the years. I've been doing this for a minute, so I'm not going to address those. Watch the video. But with that said, shout out to my man Jordy here, who says this. He says, "Hey, Dose, 94 is Benito Jones, not Eric Banks, who was cut." Okay, dang, that's a good look. I appreciate that. I don't know what I was actually thinking today that was still Eric Banks. I'm glad you said that, because I would have probably continued with it. Don't know how I forgot. Hey, Benito Jones, for some reason I keep forgetting this dude is here. All right, good look. Good look. We gave him some love. We know it's 94, but we know now it's Benito Jones. Shout out to you. I appreciate that, because sometimes, bro, we just get rolling. I forget. He says, "Love these breakdowns. Can you do one of golf/pass game?" Yes, I can do that. Actually, I hit on the beginning, but I'm doing this after the video. Absolutely. So that offensive film video that I'm going to do, it's going to be about Jared Goff in this passing game, because we've seen the run game. So let's focus on the pass game. Yes, I will do that. That is the plan for me to get that finished, and hopefully that comes out tomorrow. So shout out to you. I appreciate the suggestion. Curious about what the progressions are, and if Goff is making good reads, seeing the whole field, or maybe deciding too much pre-snap what to do. Thanks for all the hard work. So we're going to dive into that, because I know they do a lot of pre-snap indicators. But anyways, we're going to do that, because I've seen this game multiple times. I've watched the offense side multiple times. Felt like it was a great day for the passing offense. So yes, let's take a look at that. Hopefully by sometime tomorrow you will have that video. Shout out to you, Jordy. Appreciate my man Chris, who is replying to these comments, and he also says, yes, a golf video. You want me to focus on some of the passes that are behind that could be intercepted? We will look at those, because I know you're talking about them out routes. I know you're talking about those. So anyways, I will do that. Appreciate the comment of the day. Leave your comment, see if it gets commented today. And honestly, if you really want it to be in here, maybe put like hashtag comment of the day, or like hashtag comment of the day. COTD. I don't know if that stands for, that might stand for something. I don't know, so maybe don't put it if it's bad. With that, I wanted to hit on this participation report, even though it is coming out a little bit later today. I wanted to dive into this one because I'm really focused on this one. There are a lot of Lions players, but there's also a lot of Seattle players, and as we know, it's just, hey, that's how the season goes, man. There's injuries, next man up, they always say it, guys hitting IR, so you just have to be able to adjust, and that's why depth is so important. I thought depth killed us last year, so you get to test that depth that you really have. And all this talk about we trust this guy and he can step in, well, we're about to find out if that's the case with multiple positions. So with that, let's waste no time. Let's jump into it. Actually, hold up. Let's waste a little bit of time. Well, not really waste the time, but I want to talk about this news here with Jerry Jacobs before we even show this participation report. It kind of all ties together, but from what my understanding is that Jerry Jacobs has been cleared to practice starting next week. Now, this is what he told M Live. He said this: "I just want to play." He said, "Bro, I'm so eager. You just got to think about it. Like, this is the NFL. What I did last year, that ain't compared to what I'm finna do this year." Okay, stop. Hold up. Now he's getting me excited. That ain't compared to what I'm going to do this year. He's just, and he even, like, you know, he wanted to get back. I don't know if he wanted to necessarily get placed on IR. The Lions did it. I think it made sense that they did it. Of course, just kind of where their roster was at. But he continued with this: "I missed a couple of games, but I'm ready to show them I still got it. Still got that dog in me," because as we know, Jerry Jacobs had that dog in him last season. I think he was probably, I don't know, maybe the surprise of the year. Jacobs was awesome last season. I thought he was our best cornerback last season. And also, he brought us the seatbelt. And I don't think we've seen a lot of seatbelts since he's been gone. So we need to get him back so the seatbelt can also come back and we can all stay safe. You know what I'm saying? So Jerry Jacobs clear to practice by next week. I'm assuming he's going to be back out there practicing, but that probably won't mean that he's going to be active that week. It kind of feels like, yeah, probably after the bye week. I would assume that it's kind of aiming more so after the bye week that his return is lining up for. But either way, getting back to practice, got to practice so that you can play, because the Lions aren't going to just throw a guy out there if he doesn't practice, I don't think. And Jerry Jacobs, I'm very intrigued to see what this looks like when he comes back. I'm expecting it's going to be Jeff and Amani still as the 1 and 2, and Jerry Jacobs will just be like the number 3 corner at that point. But I think that's huge for Detroit, because I think sometimes you utilize that guy on the field. Do they give him some slot looks, which I thought was potentially a thing, but maybe not, because we have Mike Hughes kind of locked into that role. Either way, Jerry was a dog last season, like he said, and I think he's going to legitimately push these 1s and 2s, specifically Amani at that cornerback position this season. Now, that's not to say I'm giving up on Amani because he had a rough game. I mean, that happens. He got called for some flags. Some of them may have been a little bit softer than others. Some of them were kind of obvious, but I'm not giving up on Amani. I know what Amani is, but I think Jacobs is a kind of a different, he's a different type. He just really is a different type, and I think that if the coaches allow him to, he could legitimately push for certain opportunities against certain matchups that he would make more sense than Amani if he can get back. And it's always nice to have that depth. Plus, on top of that, I know I'm saying a lot here, Will Harris, who the Lions started mixing in as kind of like an extra defensive back last week when Tracy Walker went down, may continue to get roles like that, where he's kind of like the guy that can play safety and be like your third safety, but match up with tight ends, because they're not going to really do that with Juju Hughes. We know he can be a depth cornerback, but he can just play different roles for the Lions in the defense as like a sub-package type of player in certain situations. And if you have Jerry Jacobs, it can allow Will Harris to do a little bit more of that, and they can keep putting him in those roles. That way, if they ever need Will Harris, they can just go to Jerry Jacobs instead. Now, I do want to touch on the safety point for a second. The Lions said, Aaron Glenn, that basically what they're going to do for this week is Kirby Joseph is going to get a crack at it, Juju Hughes is going to get a crack at it, and whoever basically is the best this week will get the start at safety this week. And he also brought up Iffy being back and now into the mix. Iffy's cool because he gives you just a unique skill set and size that Juju does not, but Juju, I thought, played a good game aside from maybe the breakdown at the end. And then Kirby Joseph, who clearly looked like a rookie in the preseason. However, obviously you saw a skill set. So I would expect that it's still going to be Juju this week, but he seems to be kind of leaving it open for competition. But Jerry Jacobs coming back is all that you need to know. Okay, he is on his way back, and he's excited to get back to it. With that, let's dive into this participation report. The small ones in the top left for both teams are Wednesdays, so you can see the progression or the regression. I think we finally got the word from Wednesday to Thursday. So let's start off with the Seattle Seahawks. They're on the left. As you can see, the first guy that we have is Gabe Jackson, who did not participate for 2 straight days with rest, but he was also listed with a knee injury. So I would assume for 2 straight days, it might actually be more of a knee injury thing than a rest injury thing. Could be a little bit of both, I guess. Regardless, he has not practiced the last 2 days from what we know, and Gabe Jackson is a starting guard for this team that I think has struggled a little bit this season. And I think specifically, Gabe Jackson showed showed some struggles last week in their game against the Atlanta Falcons, who have some dogs in the interior like a Grady Jarrett. He showed some problems there, specifically run blocking, and I think that's an area where the Lions can look to win some matchups. And, you know, we have guys like Ali McNeil, Isaiah Buggs, who can do some work. I think there's matchups to be won there, so we'll keep an eye on that one. Also, you have Justin Coleman. You probably know the name. You should know the name. He was a Detroit Lions slot cornerback for a few years there. In his place, we've been getting a look at the rookie cornerback, Kobe Bryant, out of Cincinnati. So that may be the guy that we anticipate seeing this week. Even Antoine Randall L. brought that up. Now, I can't say I saw a ton of Kobe Bryant specifically through the film. I've just kind of started diving into that for Seattle with this Atlanta Falcons game. So that is something to keep an eye on. But Justin Coleman, of course, the former Lion, it would be interesting to see him play against us, but either way, we'll keep an eye on it. It's probably going to be Kobe Bryant as his backup. Shelby Harris, he improved to limited participation, dealing with a glute injury. Don't know how many times I see glute on here. It's interesting. I like it. It shakes it up a little bit. You got a glute injury. All right. I feel bad that he's hurt, but I just, it just mixes it up, gives you a different thing to say. So he's dealing with that, but he did improve today to limited participation. This was a guy that was acquired by Seattle through that trade, which sent Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. So Shelby Harris, we know that he was a beast back with Denver on the defensive line. And really, when you look at the Seattle defensive line, we played them last year. They got some guys there. They don't have like your big names, but they have some players specifically on this interior front. Another guy on here with rest for back-to-back days, Al Woods. Al Woods, he's getting up there a little bit in age, but I'm not going to lie to you. When I hit free agency in Madden, sometimes I look to go grab Al Woods. The dude can play. He's a little bit older, but he definitely can play. They have players on the inside for sure on this team, and Shelby Harris is a big factor with that. Phil Haynes, who is a backup guard dealing with ankle injury, he was a new addition today, did not participate. Al Woods, we just hit on him, has not participated, but he's dealing with rest, so I'm sure he's fine. Quentin Jefferson, one of those defensive linemen, foot injury, limited today. Marquise Goodwin, who is, I don't know what wide receiver I'd get, maybe like wide receiver 3 on this team. Dealing with a knee injury, he's been limited for the last 2 days. Joey Blunt, who is a backup safety for this team. I don't even know if he's actually taken snaps in the NFL. I'm not sure on that one. I could be wrong, but I don't know if he's actually taken snaps in the NFL to this point. Regardless, though, he's on here with a hamstring. And finally, Kenneth Walker, who is another new addition. I didn't know how to highlight him because it's full participation, so it's like, yeah, he just got added to the list, but he's full participating, so I'm sure he's fine. Kenneth Walker hasn't had the ball much this season, but we have seen them get a little creative with how they utilize him. We all know about Rashad Penny and what he did to us last season, what he can do, and I liked how Aaron Glenn put it. Like, that's a Pete Carroll type of back Kenneth Walker is. So while he's only had 7 carries and 5 receptions up to this point, we know what he was at Michigan State. We know his body type, and he's just a playmaker. He really is. They got some good backs there, though. That kind of speaks to that as well. So we'll see if anything, happens there with him. On to the Lions side of things, let's take a look at Thursday's participation report, comparison to last week. Chris Board returned today in limited fashion, which is awesome. Chris Board, he got kind of utilized in some 4-3 sets last week, not only sub downs. Like, that was kind of the thing in the first 2 weeks, was like sub packages. We put him in the game. He could cover tight ends. He could blitz over Alex. But this week, we started to see him utilized on some early downs. We went to like 4-3 linebacker, off-ball linebacker looks. Chris Board sometimes walked up, played on the edge on the line of scrimmage. So that's a nice get back, I think, for the Lions, specifically against this team who's going to want to do a lot of things through the run again. They do a lot of zone cutback running, just like we saw last week. So we got to be prepared to be better against that, specifically in contain. So we'll keep an eye on where Chris Board's status is at. John Kaminsky, we don't expect him to practice, so that's kind of continued to kind of be the thing. But again, he's not on IR, so I'm excited for that. He's not on IR. They may believe he is able to get back to practicing sooner than 4 weeks. We'll see. There's been a lot of talk about TJ Hockenson and the opportunities that he's getting, and I think Ben Johnson put it out there pretty clearly. He basically said, look, I told this whole unit, we got a lot of weapons this year, and it's not like, hey, we're not trying to get you involved in the game. It's just that we're going to take what the defense gives us. We have plays for every single player, but what the defense gives us is what we're going to take. And that's kind of my take. Like, I don't look at this as like, man, Hawkinson's not getting enough touches or something like that. Like, I get it. We wanted to get more touches. We know what he is. But I also think the Lions have done a good job of trying to find the matchups that they have on the field. So to me, I haven't really had an issue with that from what I've seen with the film. But it looks like he's probably going to end up playing this week. I also know he did a presser this week as well. So it looks like he's probably going to end up playing this week. And there has been talk that he would be one of those guys that has to step up if there is no, for example, DJ Chark, for example, Josh Reynolds this week. Those guys are out. DeAndre Swift. We're looking at guys like Hawk to possibly play and be a little bit more impactful in this offense this week. Jonah Jackson still did not participate with his finger injury. I don't really know what to expect for how long he's going to be out there. Every time you just see no improvement, it does, hurt. Not really seeing improvement within the guy, but he's also another player that hasn't hit IR, so I guess that keeps you optimistic. Regardless, though, we did see the Lions last week put Evan Brown at right guard, kept Dan Skipper at left guard, who I think has been doing actually pretty solid. I mean, I would say, and then to put Evan Brown at right guard, that was a good call by you guys. I didn't think it was perfect. I definitely didn't. We'll see some of that with the offensive film. But I will say this with Evan Brown at right guard. I thought it was better than Logan Stenberg. It looked better than that, right? He had some issues, but I actually don't think it was bad. So I assume the Lions are going to continue to rock with that if Frank Ragnow can continue to play. So interesting, the Lions have figured it out. They've kind of worked things around. And with that being said, again, I'll get to the offensive pass. Speaking of the center position, I didn't think Frank Ragnow was very good last week. I think he was arguably our worst offensive lineman last week. With that, though, I think it really does speak to, okay, hey, look, when you've missed practice, things like that, specifically in those trenches, trying to come back, the difficulties it can be, talented interior defensive lineman that you're going against, it can be difficult to just plug back in and be the same dominant player that you were. And I think you saw that. The Minnesota Vikings, like guys like Dalvin Tomlinson, gave him some problems on the inside. In run blocking specifically, I saw that. But there was also the good, and it's like, oh, that's Frank Ragnow right there. I know that guy. So I think it just speaks to him kind of, getting back into the flow of things, which hopefully means that he could play again this week as he has improved the limited participation, as well as Bobby Price. Josh Reynolds improved the limited participation. Last week he had like 9 receptions. I think he's very important to have back, and he had a goal ball shot, which even Ben Johnson brought up, or actually that was Antoine Randall L. We had it, he just didn't find the ball. He beat the defender. It was 1-on-1. It was a good look. We just did not connect on it. Josh Reynolds has been so big time for this team, and it would be kind of cool to see Josh Reynolds and Cephas play together if that has to happen, because we didn't really see that last season. But Josh Reynolds was big time last week, so this is great news, and I'm sure this makes golf feel good, because there are clearly guys, and I think right now you see it, he's willing to give it to anybody. Continuing with Austin Seibert, he's on here with did not participate for the last 2 days. Of course, it's not ideal with the kicker position if he can't practice, but then again, it's also like, well, maybe he doesn't have to practice. It sounds pretty optimistic, according to Dave Phipp, that he is actually going to be able to play this week and hopefully redeem himself after a couple of misses. They were long misses, but a couple of misses. The Lions do have Aldrick Rosas, I believe, still on their practice squad, so they could always go that route. And if you remember, last year they basically picked Riley Patterson over Aldrick Rosas, who was perfect in the one game he played, and then they basically went with Riley Patterson from there on out. So they must have saw something in practice. Patterson did pretty well for us last season. He is no longer here or on our practice squad. But again, the Detroit Lions do have Rosas if they had to go that direction, and I feel kind of confident in that. However, it looks like Seibert's probably going to be able to play. St. Brown, no participation for back-to-back days. Put it out there that he basically just pushed through for the rest of the game and that he has a sprained ankle. And I like the way that he put it. Like, yeah, it could have been much worse. I'm not sure if he's going to play this week. They seem kind of like up in the air on it, but no participation back-to-back days is not very intriguing. Also, DeAndre Swift, no participation. It feels like he's not going to play. According to Dan Campbell, he said, basically he'd have to be in a way better spot than he is right now, speaking on Wednesday, to have a chance to play in Sunday's game. So I think it's kind of already out there. Swift is probably not playing this weekend. With that said, though, it doesn't concern me that much. For one, I didn't think Swift looked like Swift last week. I think there was a couple of opportunities where maybe he gave himself up a little bit on the play. He just didn't look like the same guy. And I think Jamal did really well last week, and Jamal's embracing the potential more opportunities. They're kind of already talking as if that's where it's going to go, at least for this week. And he's like, yeah, give me those opportunities. It's not great for the defense because I'm going to get the ball more. He says, I'm kind of a bruiser back in my mind, but I can do a lot of different things. We know he can pass protect. He put on a huge block that opened up a pass for us. I think it was the Josh Reynolds one. Maybe it was a different one. Opened up a huge pass for us because Jamal absolutely laid out the guy after Evan Brown was beat like immediately on the play. That was awesome. It's stuff like that Jamal brings. He played really well, and according to Dan Campbell, of course, you got Craig Reynolds who may get some more looks, and even Justin Jackson may get some touches this week. So that looks like what the running back group's going to look like. And then finally, DJ Chark went down today. Regressed to no participation after a limited participation day on Wednesday. So that's concerning. That is, we'll see where DJ Chark is at. If he can't go, our coaches have talked about it. Ben Johnson, we confident in a guy like Quintez Cephas. When he had to step up last week early in the season after losing some of our receivers last year, he stepped up, started to come on for us. Cephas did a lot of good. We haven't seen him much this year. He's done some blocking for us, but he hasn't done a ton for us. So Quintez Cephas may be back and getting a higher role this year, but that's why it feels so good to think okay, if he has to go, that's our backup. That feels really good because I'm very confident what Quintez Cephas does for this team. It's different. It's not like Chark's speed, so it's not like the over-the-top type of threat that you're getting. Usually, the separation over top, he doesn't really get much of that, but he's reliable. He absolutely has reliable hands, and Goff seems to trust him a lot. And they did speak on that, like, hey, if there's no St. Brown, we're going to have to change up how we utilize guys, things like that. But we may do less of like the blocking, like where we, basically pull through for Amon-Ra St. Brown through the offensive line and have him block that way. Khalif, those guys aren't going to do that. They block at the receiver position, but not really on the inside. So those things may not be there as much, some of that creativity. But Khalif could see a bigger role doing some of the things if St. Brown can't go. And of course, Quintez Cephas. And he said, hey, we could even bring up Tom Kennedy if we have to. So that is the Detroit Lions and Seattle Seahawks participation report as of Thursday. It's kind of where things feel like they're trending. We'll see where it goes. And with that, let's take a look at some of these notes from Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson's pressers today. With Jamison Williams, Antoine Randall L. did give us like a little bit of an update, but not anything specific. He basically said, he's coming along. He's continuing to do his rehab in the weight room, on the field, those kind of things. He's not out there practicing with them, but he's taking in all of the information. However, he did have some praise for Jamison Williams, and we haven't seen him play yet, but this is just based on his college film, from my understanding, and it probably is because his college film was absolutely disgusting. He said, oh yeah, Jamison can play. He said he can move around. He's a smart player. Some guys take about 4 steps to come in and out of the breaks. He takes about 2.5 like St. Brown. And of course, he's a lot lankier, a lot more top end speed. He is extremely explosive in terms of acceleration. So this is a player that is nasty. It's why he was so deadly every time he went to a double move in college. It was crazy. And even he said he's excited to get him out there and just, put him in different spots. He's a player that he did bring up specifically. They can move to different spots. And I was even thinking about that this week, like putting him in different alignments. The Lions have done that with a few receivers, but he could be very dangerous from different spots on the field. That's just going to take some focus by the defense because of that kind of game-changing speed that he has. I mean, he really does have that. So no specific update, but hopefully after the bye week, as well as, of course, other guys that can return to practice at that point include like Levi, of course, Big V, but I don't know. He's kind of down the road, it seems like. We'll see. They're maybe talking about him coming back for the year, so I would doubt by week 6 or 7 we're talking about, hey, maybe this guy's coming back. Levi, who of course is now on IR, so Levi would be able to come back and return if he's able to go. Hopefully that is the case because Levi wasn't immediately put on IR, so hopefully he's not in a bad spot right now. Josh Paschal as well also adds to that list. John Kaminsky, who of course, as we said, is not on IR, so he could actually technically return anytime, but that's probably what the calendar is more so aiming for him. So Lions got a lot of guys that are kind of right there waiting to get back, and hopefully we can get some of these guys back coming out of this bye week. But that's a couple weeks from now. Well, let me not forget to mention Romeo Okwara. I know we've gotten no updates on Romeo's health, but he would be gigantic to get back, and I have no idea where he's at, but he is on IR. I know that. Ben Johnson first. He said that, basically said overall he felt like the offense had a good day, but of course they came up short, and he felt like, we had an opportunity, kind of like last week against Washington, to finish the game with the ball in our hands, and they touched again on the 4th down decision to take a field goal. Even brought up that Dan Campbell said that he regretted that decision, but even with that, he said, look, we had a couple of opportunities to finish that game out, a couple more first downs, runs, passes, we could close that thing out with the ball in our hands. And last week we weren't able to do that either against Washington. Now last week I didn't like the play calling to close the game out. I thought it was weird. Like the fact that we tried to throw the ball. I get it. You're trying to pick up the first down. They tried to do a play action. They didn't end up hitting it. But to me, it was just like, why are we doing this? This doesn't feel necessary. But then again, this week he brought it up. Now I did notice, and I'll throw this clip in there, the little hold here. Remember the Lions tried this play action and Jared Goff had to end up basically grounding it. But you can see how Brock Wright is completely held as they all bite on this play fake. So I would say it actually kind of worked. Hockenson came open late, but Goff didn't throw it because there was a guy on that side in his face. He kind of came open late, but this probably should have been a flag considering what they were calling on Amani all game. That was much worse, and it's clear he's holding him for multiple yards. Of course, it happens. They did not see it. Regardless, though, he brought that up like, hey, we had opportunities to close this thing out. We want to finish with the ball in our hand. But he felt like the offense did pretty well. I thought the offense did well last week. I thought it was the best passing performance as a unit last week. We left some things out there. We had guys running into each other like Josh Reynolds running into Khalif, which I think is the reason that he's injured right now. We had a just miss on DJ Chark for a shot play. We had a Josh Reynolds who could not find the ball in a shot play. So things like that came up. But I think for the majority of the game, we ran the ball pretty darn well. He touched on the third downs and how, again, a lot of those were like a yard short, and a lot of times they had a 4th down to work with. I like from last week was something that they emphasized is like, hey, we can't have these flags, basically these communication errors. That didn't seem to show up very often with the Lions offense. They seem pretty clean in that regard. There's just plays that they left out there in this game. And again, this was a pretty pretty good D-line that they went against in Minnesota, and I think Seattle has some nice vets on the interior specifically. Of course, they got guys like Boye Mafe on the edge position, who's, he's all right, but, specifically on the interior, they got some vets in there that are going to challenge us, and I'm hoping for Frank Ragnow to take another step this week and kind of get back to more what Frank Ragnow is, because if he does that, I think this offensive line gets really, really tough, of course, with Evan Brown at the guard position. On to what Aaron Glenn said, which I was super interested to hear. What the issue right now is their ability to finish and execute. And he said, I could sit here and say it's miscommunication and just leave it at that, but he said it's also executing. In the red zone, we're not finishing, all right? Brought up miscommunication. Well, let's think about it. We showed this in the defense film video. Feel free to go check that out. Couple of those, all right? You had the run play where Jeff Okudah is caught peeking inside. I think Aaron Glenn said that there was kind of confusion with Mike Hughes with who's supposed to be inside, who's supposed to be outside, but Jeff Okudah peeks inside and they bounce it on the edge on him. Charles Harris is unable to get out there as he's kind of blocked. Weird to get like some help and he's kind of smushed inside. So there's no one on the edge and he runs in. Then, of course, the Amani touchdown. He's like, sometimes they're on the one, which was the PI that he was referencing. They had a PI. We would have got off the field to force the field goal, but it was a PI, so it's first and goal at the one. But he's like, we still got to find a way to get off the field. And the Lions had a fast motion cross field with Amani and Okuda. There was no communication basically there. I mean, Amani tried to communicate and they both ended up covering the same guy. That led to a wide open touchdown in the back of the end zone for Adam Thielen. So I see what he's saying here. Now, I think we've challenged teams in the red zone, but I do agree with, we've had a couple of just breakdowns. You look at the last touchdown specifically, if you want to talk about miscommunication, he doesn't want to keep saying it. Now, he did say with Juju Hughes, who I think the question was kind of asked is like, why is there so many breakdowns with him? And I'm with him in terms of, I thought Hughes played a good game. We looked at the film stuff. I thought he played a good game overall, but again, at the end of the game, it seems like he was kind of alluding to what we maybe considered could have been the issue, where he was kind of helping down a little bit more. He didn't need to be doing that. Okuda was playing inside leverage. He was forcing towards the sideline, and as he helps down, Mike Hughes gets beat on the corner route, but he has no outside help, which he is expecting, which is where Juju Hughes probably should have been, and they end up giving a touchdown. We're still not for sure on that, but that seemed like that's what happened, and we gave up a touchdown in that man coverage look. And again, we're doing all these things right. We're communicating well. I show off the good, all the good in the coverage that we do, the way we hide things in coverage, the way that our guys communicate pre-snap, but in these crucial moments, it's almost just bad timing for the Lions. You have one little misstep, one guy's doing something, you're doing something else, and it leads to a touchdown. That's an issue. DK Metcalf apparently said this about Jeff Okudah. I didn't see him actually say it, but I heard the quote, so I had to look it up. Apparently, DK Metcalf said this about Okudah. He said he's not really locking people down, because there's been a lot of hype about Okudah. He only allowed 3 receptions this last week for 14 yards. We even put it in a thumbnail of the video. He said he's not really locking people down. He's got a safety behind him, but he's a good cornerback. So, how do I feel about that? Honestly, I feel like he's not wrong. I think he's actually speaking the truth here. But with that being said, it is a little disrespectful just the way that it kind of came off. Like, he's not actually doing what you guys are saying he's doing. He could think that and be like, hey, look, we know he's got help. But the way that he said it, like, he's not locking people down. He's got a safety over top him. But he is a good cornerback. Like, he tried to, but he is this. I don't know, it felt a little disrespectful, but maybe Jeff Okudah can take that, kind of carry it with him. I'm assuming he's going to get this matchup. Last time we played them, DK had 6 receptions, I think 63 yards, 3 touchdowns. One was a complete breakdown on a blitz play. But we saw a lot of iffy in that game on him. Now, if he had some good, he had some bad. I think Okudah could absolutely do some good on him in this matchup because of the size. I think Okudah can match up with bigger receivers. I think that's a big strength that he has. And we saw that last week. There were times where they were able to match up with him. AJ Terrell had a nice pass break up on the end zone on him. So I think you can match up with size for size. I think Iffy had enough good reps last year where that can happen. I doubt they put Iffy back on him this year. But DK's also extremely talented, because what makes DK tough is that he's that big, but he's also pretty explosive, and he has good acceleration in and out of cuts. So he's not like this lumbering receiver around where he's basically a big tight end. He's not like that. He's almost maybe closer to an AJ Brown in that kind of sense, where he still makes great cuts. So it's difficult. But Aaron Glenn responded with this. He kind of gave it like, what did he say? Like, that's defense. Our job is to put him in the best position that we can. So, you have linebackers, you have safeties. So I agree with the overall message. Like, to me, Jeff Okudah, now let's not act like Okudah didn't play one-on-one. Let's not like Okuda always had safety over top, because that's not the case. He did good. He moved well. He looks healthy, but he also looks like he's refining a lot of things. He did get beat over the top one time. It's cornerback in the NFL. It's life of a cornerback. Playing off your help is something you have to do. He played really well off his help. But to act like he didn't have good reps in the red zone, to act like he didn't have some one-on-ones where he shut guys down, to act like he wasn't playing with extreme confidence over Justin Jefferson, that's not true. So I think when you specifically look at the film of the corner route, or you look at, there is a lot of them where it's like, hey, here's safety help. I can play this leverage. I don't have to worry about that because you're going to be there. We're going to bracket him in. The Lions did that. But as Glenn said, that was our game plan, was take him out of the game. And unfortunately, it was the opposite guy, Thielen, who drew like 6 penalties on Amani, which really hurt us in this one. If that wasn't the case, we'd been a lot better. And to Aaron Glenn, he didn't seem to think like, okay, this is all on Amani. He's like, look, he was playing physical with him. He said he played a little bit of a different technique last week. He said he was actually working on it so far this week, changing that up a little bit. So they were calling every little thing. And he wants him to come back next week, not worry about it, and play a physical style. But of course, he has to be aware of that. And I actually can, some of those reps to me, like I can see how it's like, okay, you don't really need to call it. Like that's a little tic-tacky. Like for, like of course the Mike Hughes PI, but even on Amani, it's like, yeah, he's being physical, but I don't know if that's a PI. However, there were some also that I felt like, yeah, that one's kind of egregious. So I definitely think Amani definitely, had some calls. But if we be honest, if he was healthy, let's say he was healthy, he hasn't really had games like this in the past. Now he got to beat. I always say it. I don't think he's the stickiest man coverage guy. Don't think he's our best man coverage guy. But he is a guy that hasn't had 5 penalties in a game like this before. I don't believe. So it may have been a tough game, and now he's got to adjust and adapt and learn from that, and that's what a young corner has to do. He's still a young corner, and I believe he will do that. And as Aaron Glenn said, like we have all the faith in Amani. We have all the faith in Amani. He can get us the ball back, and we anticipate and we expect him to be able to do that for us this week. I mean, that's what he does. He's a playmaker at corner, right? He's not perfect, but he is a playmaker. And, you'd like, for example, a corner. And going back to the Okuda thing, like, yeah, Okuda played with help, but specifically in the slot, he also played with a lot of help. But that just makes sense because it's very difficult to have an outside corner like Jeff cover someone from the slot. You don't see many outside corners that can shadow inside a slot and play one-on-one. First off, it's almost impossible to cover a slot anyways because they have a 3-way go. Then you add on top of that you're an outside corner playing slot, which is not what you normally do. That's difficult. And Jeff Okudah had a lot of struggles with that. Look at when he first got thrown into the fire against Devontae Adams in 2020, his rookie year. He struggled big time trying to keep up with him from the slot. That's a tough matchup. So what did the Lions do? Well, yeah, they threw him some help. That just makes sense. They wanted to play a lot of man. They threw him help because if they played zone, they wouldn't be able to help him directly as much as they did. So credit to Aaron Glenn. I like what he's doing. I think he's not being, predictable, and he's giving you different things. I expect we play some soft zone, live with underneath passes, and play kind of that way. He wants to be aggressive. He said, forget that. I'm playing man coverage. We're going to double team that guy. We're going to continue to blitz. I respect it. I do. Just like we say with pass defense, it's not just the front. And I think, again, that gets talked about a lot. Like the front in this game, I thought the Lions had their most struggles between Aleem and Bugs. But to act like they didn't have also a lot of good in there is not fair. They had some good in there, specifically Aleem. Bugs was doing some great things. The way that technically he was doing some things was money, especially on the backside of runs. But against this team, he said, look, we make it clear like all 11 guys are involved in run defense because there were so many runs. Check out the all 22 we did where contain was a breakdown and it was, hey, maybe a defensive back didn't fill here, right? Maybe it was a linebacker, but it's everybody. It's not just what is the front doing. That's why they're struggling. The front had bad reps, but that's not all the run game, right? To just point like, oh, they gave up yards, so hey, what the heck is the defensive front doing? That's not fair. Like, think about it. If it's a jet sweep, are we blaming the defensive front? No, right? We're blaming the other guys that have to make the plays on those. So that was an issue, and I think when you look at the Seattle offense, they're going to do a lot of same things that they did. They like to get movement, but at the same time, they do heavy, tight packages, and they're also going to do a lot of cutback runs with Penny, which gave us some big-time problems. So Aaron Glenn, to me, this is a week where I think you show a lot of your players being coached up this week and being able to utilize that, what they are taught, and show it on the field. Slowing down this run game is going to be a challenge. It's a team that I don't think has the best offensive line. I really don't. Across the board, they got 2 rookies at tackle. Lucas has seemingly done pretty fine. Charles Cross at left tackle. They don't seem to have the best offensive line. Their guards, I don't think, are great. Damian Lewis and Gabe Jackson, I don't think, are outstanding, and we'll see if Gabe Jackson's even able to play. But they do a scheme that's difficult, and they force you to contain. And if you don't do that, you have problems. But you can definitely penetrate, and I expect more penetration consistently in this game from the Lions defensive line, but the contain must be on point, better than it was last week. So I think last week is good because you can learn a lot from that game to me. I think you can learn a lot from how that game ended up going down. And finally, a little more note to Okuda. Aaron Glenn said that he's kind of climbing his way. He said, I don't feel like you know what you are as a football team until week 4. And he said he's got one more week to do it, I guess. Basically, he was like, look, Okuda's kind of climbing that way as he's that guy that you can put one-on-one on the outside and you don't have to throw safety help consistently too, and that can help our defensive line. Because, of course, you put a guy on one and you're like, hey, take him out of the game, regardless of who you're asking to take out, but most likely the top receiver, put a safety help on the other guy. Imagine if Amani played with safety help and you can shadow Jeff Okuda, specifically just when he's on the outside. Like that, I mean, you can shadow Jefferson when he's on the outside. That changes the game completely. So he's like, maybe he'll show us that, I guess, basically like he's climbing that way, and he's got another week to show us if he's that player right now, if he is that guy right now. But I think he is getting better week by week, and I think you do see that from Jefe. So you love to see the growth. Their corners are going to get beat. It's football. But he is battling right now, and I love what we've seen from him. So those are notes that we have for the participation report and from the coordinators. Stay tuned for an offensive film video, hopefully by tomorrow sometime. That's kind of the plan. And as well as hopefully a preview Saturday, more like Saturday morning, I'm thinking. But again, we'll see where the schedule kind of plays out. I definitely want to hit on this. Thank you, Prop, for watching, and I'm out.